Hello and welcome to my YouTube. This is an introduction to the most powerful button on the E463 keyboard, the function button. Learning to use the function button is complicated because this button can be used to do 65 different things. In my YouTubes, I speak slowly and sometimes repeat important points because I have learned that there are thousands of people around the world that watch my YouTubes that do not speak English as their native language. And I have also learned that there are over a dozen blind people who watch my YouTubes. That's why I read all of the text on the screen. Do you have to learn how to use the function button? Good question. The answer is maybe not. You can learn to play thousands of songs on the E463 keyboard and never once touch the function button. Pages 66 through page 69 of the E463 Owner's Manual list all of the 65 uses of the function button. If you want to download a copy of the E463 Owner's Manual, go to this Yamaha webpage, and by the way, I will put this URL in the comments of my YouTube so you can just click on it. For those of you who don't own an E463 and have never had an owner's manual, this is a good way to get it, and of course it's free. I'm going to ignore those function settings that I know are unimportant to the vast majority of the people watching this YouTube. There is no need to waste time learning about function settings that you will probably never need to use. Many of us are just casual players. We bought this keyboard just for the fun of it. We're not professionals. We don't make music for a living. Now, I know that some of you are. There are hundreds of you that play in bands, and I have learned, several thousand of you that play in churches all over the world. So I'm not really making this video for the people that need to know everything this keyboard can do. I'm making this video for the people who just pretty much want to know what I can do with this keyboard, but I don't necessarily have to know every single thing that can be done. I'm also not going to spend any time on functions that can easily be set using other buttons on the E463 keyboard. For example, function 06 is used to set the transpose, but there is already a transpose button on the keyboard, and pressing that transpose button is the way 99% of us transpose the keyboard. I never go into functions to change the transpose. I just tap the transpose button and dial it in. Now, a word of caution. When you do press the function button, do not press and hold it. Just tap it quickly. If you press and hold the function button, you go into file control on a USB thumb drive. So don't press and hold it, just tap it. So this is what it looks like on the right-hand side of your screen. Over here is the screen on the keyboard. Here is the function button. And notice this little down arrow, what it's telling you is that if you press and hold it, you go into file control. These are category buttons, and in a moment I'm going to show you a video of me actually calling up some functions. This is how you go from one function to the next. You can go up, you can go down. Once you've called up a function, then I will use this rotary dial wheel to dial in whatever amount I want on that function. For example, I control the volume with this. So let's watch this YouTube. And by the way, when you press the function button on your screen, it's going to look something like this. Over here on the right, it says function, and there will be a number telling you which one of the 65 functions you are currently looking at. Then it will show you the name of the function, and I'm going to go through these in great detail in just a moment. And this number down here is how much have you applied. In this example, I've called up the style volume, and that goes from 0 to 127. And in this example, it's setting on 91, sort of partly loud, not full loud, that would be 127. And I use this rotary wheel to control this number, and I use these category buttons to go from one function to the next, and I can go back and forth. So let's watch and listen to that video. Now I'm actually going to go in and set some of the functions. So here's the layout. Up here is the function button. And here are the category buttons that I use to go from one function to another. Right now I'm set on voice, and it's the grand piano voice 001. So I'm going to reach out and tap the function button. Ready? Tap. And now it says song volume function 002. So using the category buttons, I can go up and down through the category, through the functions. I'm going to press the left one and go to function 001, which is the style volume. Once I'm on one of the functions, then I can use my rotary wheel to dial up or dial down whatever amount I want. Right now, for example, the style volume is set at 72. I'm going to turn it all the way up to maximum, which is 127. Now it's 127. So if I press the category buttons, I can go from one function to the next. I'm on function 001, tap, 02, tap, 03. Now I'm on function 004, which is the auxiliary in. In other words, if I hooked up my iPhone and started playing music, how loud is the music? Right now it's set on 126, so I'll use my rotary wheel and I'll dial it down to, let's say 84. There's 84. Now I'm going to punch the category button again, and I'm going to go up to function 11, 9, 10, 11. This is the main volume, the volume of my main voice, my right-hand voice. It's set on 122, so I'm going to dial it down to 92. Now it's set at 92. So the category buttons go up and down from function to function. And once I get on the function I want, then I use the rotary wheel to dial up or dial down how much I want. For example, this is the reverb in the main voice, function 014. Okay, so that's how you call it up. You tap the function button. You use the category buttons to go up and down from function to function. And once you're on a function, then you use the rotary wheel to select how much you want. The list of function settings is in the owner's manuals on pages 66 through 69, and this is just a screenshot of what they look like. We'll look at them in detail in just a second. There are 65 different functions or settings on the function button, but I'm only going to explain the 15 I consider most important. I'm going to ignore those functions that have their own button, or functions I consider unimportant to the vast majority of us E463 keyboard players. the less I have to teach you, the easier it will be to learn. So I'm not going to fill your mind with a bunch of details about a bunch of functions I know you're probably never going to use, if you're like me. So this is what it looks like if you open up the owner's manual and you go to page 66. Notice that there are two columns here. This owner's manual is for two different keyboards, the PSR E463, which has 61 keys, and also the PSR EW410, which is nearly identical except it has 76 keys. So this one manual is for both keyboards. That's why you have two columns here. On the left is the function number, starting at 001 and going all the way up to 065. In this column, it tells you what is that function. For example, 001 is style volume. The display tells you what is it going to look like on the screen. So it doesn't say style volume, it says style vol. And then it tells you what is the range. And in the case of volumes, it goes from 0, which is totally silent, all the way up to 127. The default value tells you when you bought this keyboard and you opened it up and plugged it in and turned it on, what was the style volume set at. So these are all of the default settings. In other words, what was it set on when I first got it right from the factory? And as I say, this is page 66. Notice I have blacked out those functions that I'm not even going to talk about because I don't think they're important enough. Now, I know you can't read it. I just want you to see that on the second page, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm only going to talk about 5 functions, and we are going to ignore all of these functions. That's good news for you. On the next page, I'm going to ignore everything except 2 of the functions. And here's the good news. On the last page, I'm going to ignore everything on page 69. I just don't think they're important enough, or there's a button on the keyboard that does it better. So let's start with the volume control functions, because these are the functions that I use almost every day. I'm constantly playing with the volume of the main voice and the volume of my style to get them to balance. So function 001 is the style volume, and this is what it looks like on your screen. It says style vol. And once again, this controls how loud does the style play, which is my left hand. And I'm constantly sometimes turning this up and down because I want to be able to hear my main voice, and sometimes the style is just too darn loud, and so I'll go in and turn it down. Once again, this tells me what is the function number. And this number tells me on a scale of 0 to 127, how much volume do I have set in. Function 002 is the song volume. What's that? This controls how loud a demo song or a MIDI song plays. Your E463 has several dozen demo songs, and you can press these and hear them play. And this controls how loud does the demo song play. Also, if you load a MIDI song off of a thumb drive, and I've done a whole YouTube on that, this controls how loud does that MIDI song play. Function 003 is the groove volume. And it looks like this. And of course, this is kind of obvious. This controls how loud a groove plays. And if you don't know what a groove is, I've done a whole YouTube. In fact, a lot of people have done YouTubes on grooves. What are they? How do you play them? And how do you control them? But anyway, when a groove starts playing, this is how you set the volume of the groove. Function 004 is the aux in vol. the auxiliary in volume. On the back of the keyboard is a connection called the aux in, and this is where I can plug my iPhone, for example, or my iPad, and I can have music that I've pulled off the internet or out of iTunes, and I can play that music through the speakers on my keyboard. So this controls the volume of the music coming into the E463 through the aux in connection. And once again, for example, I can connect my iPhone up to my E463 using the aux in connection and play music on the iPhone through the speakers of my E463 as I play along with it. Function 005 is called USB in vol. This is the volume of music coming through the USB. So this controls the volume of the music coming off of a USB thumb drive and being played through the E463 speakers. You know, a thumb drive doesn't have any controls on it whatsoever. So if you store a song on a thumb drive and plug it into the keyboard and play it, this is the only way you can control how loud that song is going to play on your keyboard. Function 009, split point. And it looks like this. This allows you to determine where the keyboard is split between the main voice and the style and split voice. So when you bought this keyboard, it was already split. And the default is it was split right here on this F sharp key. This is called F sharp number 2. And it's called number 2 because you start at the left end of the keyboard. Here is the first F sharp 1, and here is the second one, F sharp 2. So by default, this keyboard was already split when it came from the factory, and it was split right here at F sharp 2. But you can change it if you want to. Let me talk about that. I have owned and played 8 different synthesizers and keyboards since 1988, and I have never changed the split point on any keyboard. I have always split the keyboards at the default F sharp 2. So my advice, friends, is yeah, you can do it, but I never have, and I've never found a reason that I need to change that split point, and odds are you don't either. So I'm kind of saying, forget this one. Don't change the split point. It makes life complicated. Function 011, M volume. This one is important. This is the volume of the main voice, the volume of everything playing on the main voice with my right hand. This controls the volume of your main voice, which is played by your right hand. This is one of the most used functions for me. I often change the volume of the main voice so it can be heard over the volume of the style. The default from the factory is the style and the main voice are set at the same volume. And sometimes I want to hear that main voice, that solo voice playing louder than the style. So almost every day I go in and I change the main voice volume, and I usually crank it up to 127 full volume so I can hear it being played over the style. Function 012, M octave, the main voice octave. This function lets you raise or lower the octave of the main voice. And I'm going to tell you personally, I've never used it. I just haven't found a reason that I need to raise the main voice up several octaves, or I could lower it, I suppose. So yeah, you can do it. I've never found a reason to. So I'm telling you about it, but I'm also hinting that you probably are not going to use it. I never have. Function 013, main voice pan, M-pan, and it looks like this on your screen. This is the main voice pan. In a stereo recording, this lets you move the main voice to the left speaker or to the right speaker. So you can move where your main voice is coming from. Is it coming from the left side or the right side? Quite frankly, I always want it right in the middle, and that's what this is. 064 is halfway between 0 and 127. So, but let me say this. If you only have one speaker, this function does nothing for you. There is no left and right if all you have is a one speaker. For example, if you just have your iPhone and you're using the speaker in your iPhone, you can forget panning because it doesn't mean anything. It only applies to music that was recorded in stereo and that you're listening to it with stereo speakers or headphones. Function 014. M reverb, the main voice reverb. This controls how much reverb you are applying to the main voice in your right hand. Reverb is that echo effect. For example, if I go into a huge church or a cathedral and someone's playing, let's say, a pipe organ, it's not exactly the echo, but it's close to it. The sound bounces off of the walls and the floors and the ceilings and comes back to you. It's the sound in a really big room or a ballroom. So you can apply reverb. So maybe I'm recording this in my bedroom, but I want it to sound like it's coming from an organ in a cathedral. You just crank in the reverb. Function 015 is M chorus, the main voice only, not the style, the main voice chorus, and it looks like this. This controls how much chorus effect you are applying to the main voice, which is in your right hand. This chorus is a little hard to explain. It's like this. Let's say I start singing a note, la, or I sing la, 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 la. But what if I got 10 other men, all of them first tenors like me, and what if we all sing exactly the same thing, la, 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 but there's 10 of us? Would that sound different than just me singing it alone? Well, of course it would. And that's what chorus effect is. It takes the single sound and it makes it richer, fuller, lusher, thicker. Those are the words that are used to describe chorus. It's the difference between a solo singer and a choir singing the same note. Function 016, main M attack, main voice attack. This controls how fast your main voice comes up to full volume. For example, if I'm playing a drum and I hit the drum, it's at full volume right now. If I hit a piano key, it's at full volume right now. But a violin and a cello, it takes it a little longer for that string to get vibrating and for it to come up to full volume. That's what attack is. You can control how fast it takes your instrument, whatever you've chosen. How fast does it take to go to full volume when you hit the key? Function 017, M release, main voice release. This is just the opposite. This controls how fast the main voice decays away to zero volume. Okay. Once again, the volume controls to me are the most important functions. These are the ones that I typically go in and use the function button for. And we've already gone through these, the style volume, the song volume, the groove volume, and number 011 is the main volume. So quite often, almost every day that I play, I am playing around with how loud is my left hand style, and I'll go into volume function 011. This is the main voice volume. How loud is my right hand? Because I want to be sure you hear my main voice in my right hand. So I will crank that volume up, and I will often turn down the volume of the style so it doesn't play so loud. These are the two most used functions for me. So that's it. That's the function button and the 15 most important functions out of a total of 65. I want to thank you for watching, and let me know in the comments if this was helpful. And in closing, be well.